Captain Jake Morrison stood in his small office aboard the ship USS Liberty. The metal walls around him felt cold and gray. Outside the window, stars moved slowly past as the ship traveled through space, but Jake was not looking at the stars. He was reading a message that made his stomach feel tight. The message came from Earth Command. It was marked as urgent and top secret. Jake read it 3 times, hoping the words would change. They did not. Captain Morrison, the message began. You're ordered to travel to the Zephyrian homeworld. Queen Vexara has agreed to one final meeting. If this meeting fails, war will begin within 7 days. You leave in 4 hours. Jake put down the tablet and rubbed his tired eyes. The Zephyrians were tall, strong aliens who lived in crystal cities. For 2 years they had been fighting with human colonies near their space. The fights were getting worse, more people died each month. A knock came at his door. Come in, Jake called. Dr. Lisa Grant walked into the room. She was the ship's science officer and one of Jake's closest friends. Lisa looked worried. Her brown hair was messy, like she had been working for hours without rest. I heard about your mission, Lisa said. She sat down in the chair across from Jake's desk. This is crazy. They are sending you to die. Jake nodded slowly. Maybe. But someone has to try. Why you? Lisa asked. You are not a diplomat. You are a ship captain. Jake stood up and walked to the window. He remembered the day that changed his life. It was 3 years ago on a small moon called Kepler 7. Human and Zephyrian forces had fought there. Many soldiers from both sides died. During the battle, Jake found a wounded Zephyrian soldier hiding behind some rocks. The alien was young and bleeding badly. His crystal armor was broken. His breathing was weak. Jake could have left him to die. He could have taken him prisoner. Instead, Jake used his own medical supplies to help the wounded soldier. He gave the alien water and food. When Zephyrian rescue ships came, Jake let them take their wounded friend home. The soldier's name was Crixatal. Before leaving, Crixatal touched Jake's hand with his own strange long fingers. He spoke in broken human language. You good human, I not forget. That is why they picked me, Jake told Lisa. I am the only human who helped a Zephyrian and lived to tell about it. Lisa shook her head. That was 3 years ago. Things are different now. The Zephyrians hate us more than ever. Jake turned back to face her. Then we need to try something different. Like what? Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, How is our little friend doing? Lisa's face changed. She looked confused. You mean Spark? Yes. For 6 months, the Liberty had carried a strange passenger. The crew found the small creature on a destroyed research station. The station was empty except for dead bodies and broken machines. But in one damaged room, they found something alive. The creature was no bigger than a house cat. Its body glowed with soft blue light. It had no fur or scales, just smooth skin that seemed to pulse with inner light. Its eyes were large and dark, full of intelligence. The crew called it Spark because of the way it glowed. Dr. Grant had been taking care of it in the medical bay. Spark was gentle and curious. It seemed to like music and would glow brighter when someone played songs. Spark is doing well, Lisa said. But why are you asking? Jake walked back to his desk. He picked up a small metal box. I want to bring Spark with me. Lisa stood up quickly. What? Jake, that is insane. You are going to meet an alien queen who wants to kill all humans, and you want to bring our pet? Spark is not a pet, Jake said quietly. We both know that. Spark is something special. We just do not know what yet. Lisa crossed her arms. Even if that is true, bringing Spark could put it in danger. Jake opened the metal box. Inside was a small travel container with air holes and soft padding. I have a feeling about this, Lisa. Something tells me that Spark might be important. Feeling? Lisa shook her head. You are risking your life on a feeling? Jake closed the box and looked at his friend. 3 years ago, I had a feeling that I should help that wounded Zephyrian soldier. Everyone said it was stupid, but that feeling is why Queen Vexara agreed to meet with me. Lisa was quiet for a long time. Finally, she sighed. You are the, most stubborn human in space, Jake Morrison. Is that a yes? I will prepare Spark for travel, Lisa said. But if this goes wrong, I will never forgive you. After Lisa left, Jake sat alone in his office. He thought about the mission ahead. Queen Vexara was known to be smart and dangerous. Her crystal palace was protected by the best warriors in the galaxy. If she wanted Jake dead, he would not leave that palace alive. But Jake had learned something important during his years in space. Sometimes the biggest changes came from the smallest actions. Helping one wounded soldier had opened a door that everyone thought was closed forever. Maybe bringing one small glowing creature would open another door. Jake picked up his communicator. Bridge, this is the captain. Set course for the Zephyrian homeworld, maximum speed. Yes, sir, came the reply. Jake looked out the window again. The stars seemed brighter now. In a few days, he would either help save the peace between humans and Zephyrians, or he would die trying. Either way, he would not go alone. The Zephyrian homeworld looked like a giant jewel floating in space. Jake Morrison pressed his face to the shuttle window as they flew closer. The planet's surface was covered with crystal cities that glowed with their own light. Tall spires reached up toward the sky like frozen lightning. I have never seen anything like this, said Lieutenant Sam Parker. He was flying the small shuttle that would take Jake to the planet's surface. Sam was young and brave, but his voice shook a little as he spoke. Neither have I, Jake replied. He held the metal box containing Spark on his lap. The little creature had been quiet during the trip, glowing softly inside its travel container. Around them, huge Zephyrian warships moved through space like deadly dancers. Each ship was twice the size of Jake's Liberty. Their crystal hulls caught starlight and threw it back in rainbow colors, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Captain, Sam said, those ships could destroy us in seconds. Why are they letting us pass? Jake watched the alien ships. Because Queen Vexara wants to look me in the eye before she decides whether to start a war. The shuttle shook as they entered the planet's atmosphere. Below them, the crystal cities grew larger. Jake could see thousands of Zephyrians moving through the streets. They looked like giant insects, but they walked upright like humans. Their bodies shined with metallic colors. Sam guided the shuttle toward the largest crystal structure in the city. It was a palace that seemed to grow right out of the ground. Tall towers twisted up into the clouds. The whole building pulsed with inner light like a heartbeat made of rainbow colors. Landing platform ahead, Sam said. Captain, are you sure about this? Jake stood up and checked his uniform. He wore his best dress clothes and carried only the metal box and a small bag with official papers. No weapons were allowed in the palace. No, Jake said honestly. But we are going anyway. The shuttle landed with a soft bump. Through the window, Jake could see Zephyrian guards waiting for them. The aliens were 8 feet tall and covered in armor that looked like living metal. They carried long spears that crackled with electric energy. Wait here, Jake told Sam. If I do not come back in 2 hours, return to the Liberty and tell them what happened. Sam nodded. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. Good luck, Captain. Jake took a deep breath and opened the shuttle door. The air on the planet was thick and warm. It smelled like metal and flowers mixed together. The gravity was heavier than Earth's, making each step feel harder. The Zephyrian guards surrounded Jake as soon as he stepped outside. They did not speak, but their compound eyes watched his every move. One guard gestured with his spear, pointing toward a large doorway in the Crystal Palace. Jake walked between the guards, holding the box carefully. As they moved through the palace corridors, he was amazed by what he saw. The walls were made of living crystal that changed colors as they passed. Strange music seemed to come from the walls themselves, like the building was singing. Other Zephyrians stopped to watch Jake walk by. Some pointed at him with their forearms. Others made clicking sounds with their mouths. Jake could not understand. their language, but he could feel their anger and curiosity. The guards led him through corridor after corridor. Finally, they stopped in front of massive doors that must have been 30 feet tall. The doors were made of clear crystal, but Jake could not see through them. Lights danced inside the crystal like trapped lightning. One guard stepped forward and made a series of clicks and whistles. The doors began to open slowly, making a sound like singing glass. Jake's breath caught in his throat as he saw the throne room beyond. The chamber was huge, bigger than any building Jake had ever seen. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above. Crystal pillars stretched up like frozen waterfalls, and everywhere there was light. Soft, colorful light that seemed to come from the walls, the floor, even the air itself. At the far end of the room, on a throne made of black crystal, sat Queen Vexara. Jake had seen pictures of Zephyrian leaders, but nothing had prepared him for seeing the queen in person. She was 12 feet tall with 4 powerful arms and skin that looked like polished metal. Her body was purple and silver, and it seemed to shift colors as she moved. Her head was long and elegant with compound eyes that reflected light like jewels. But it was not her size or her beauty that made Jake's heart race. It was the intelligence in those eyes. Queen Vexara was clearly very smart, and right now, she was studying Jake like a scientist studies a new specimen. Around the throne stood the queen's personal guards, the Velkari. Jake had heard stories about these warriors. They were the best, fighters in the galaxy, chosen from birth to protect the royal family. Each one carried a biometal spear that could cut through solid steel. Jake began walking across the enormous room toward the throne. His footsteps echoed in the silence. The box containing Spark felt heavier with each step. As he got closer, Jake noticed something that made his blood turn cold. The Velkari guards were not standing at attention like ceremonial soldiers. They were in fighting position. Their spears were pointed at him, ready to strike. Their eyes were bright with combat drugs. This was not a diplomatic meeting. This was an execution. Queen Vexara raised one of her 4 hands. Jake stopped walking. The queen's voice filled the chamber, speaking in the Zephyrian language. Her words made the crystal walls ring like bells. Jake's universal translator buzzed in his ear, turning her words into English. Human called Jake Morrison. You come to my world. You claim you want peace. But your people have done terrible things. They have destroyed what is sacred to us. They have murdered the innocent. Jake tried to speak, but the queen raised another hand, silencing him. You have 30 seconds to explain why I should not kill you where you stand, she continued. 30 seconds to justify the existence of your entire species. Jake looked around the throne room. Every guard was ready to attack. Every eye was focused on him. In 30 seconds, spears would pierce his body and his mission would be over. The war would begin, and millions would die. He had planned to give a speech about peace and cooperation. He had memorized facts about trade agreements and shared technology. But none of that mattered now. Instead, Jake did the only thing he could think of. He opened the metal box. Spark floated out of the container like a tiny star coming to life. The little creature's blue glow seemed weak in the bright throne room, but it was there. Spark looked around with its large, dark eyes, taking in the crystal walls and the tall aliens surrounding it. Then Spark began to sing. The sound that came from the small creature was unlike anything Jake had ever heard. It was not quite music and not quite words, but something in between. The sound filled the enormous room, bouncing off the crystal walls and growing stronger. The effect on the Zephyrians was immediate and dramatic. The guards' spears began to shake in their hands. Their bright eyes grew wide with shock. Some took steps backward. Queen Vexara rose from her throne so quickly that Jake thought she might attack. Instead, she stared at Spark with an expression Jake had never seen on an alien face before. It looked like wonder, and fear, and something else that Jake could not identify. The queen spoke again, but this time her voice was barely a whisper. Jake's translator struggled to catch the words. Little Mother and a Star Child in the first song. Spark continued to sing, floating in the air between Jake and the throne. The crystal palace itself seemed to respond to the creature's voice. The walls glowed brighter. The floor vibrated gently. Even the air seemed to shimmer with music. Jake realized that he had been holding his breath. He let it out slowly and waited to see what would happen next. Whatever Spark was, it was clearly more important than anyone had imagined. The fate of two civilizations now hung in the air with one small, singing creature. Spark's song filled the crystal throne room like water filling a bowl. The sound was soft but somehow reached every corner of the huge space. Jake Morrison watched in amazement as the palace itself seemed to wake up. The crystal walls began to pulse with light that matched Spark's rhythm. Colors flowed through the pillars like liquid rainbows. The floor beneath Jake's feet vibrated gently, as if the entire building was humming along with the small creature. But it was the Zephyrians' reaction that truly shocked Jake. The mighty Valkyrie guards, warriors who feared nothing in the galaxy, were trembling. Their bio-metal spears shook in their four-fingered hands. Some of the guards had tears flowing from their compound eyes. Queen Vexara stepped down from her throne. Each step she took was slow and careful, as if she was walking on holy ground. Her 12-foot frame seemed smaller somehow, less threatening. Her purple and silver skin had turned a soft gold color that Jake had never seen before. The queen moved closer to where Spark floated in the air. The little creature turned to look at her with its large, dark eyes. When their gazes met, Spark's glow became brighter and its song became sweeter. Queen Vexara began to speak in the Zephyrian language. But this was different from her earlier commands. Her voice was gentle, like a mother talking to her child. Jake's universal translator worked hard to catch the meaning of her words. "Little one," the queen whispered, "we thought you were all gone. We thought the light bearers had left us forever." Spark floated closer to the queen. The creature's glow wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Queen Vexara reached out with one of her 4 arms, her clawed hand trembling. "May I?" she asked in her musical voice. Spark drifted into her palm. The queen's massive hand could have crushed the small creature easily, but she held it with incredible gentleness. Spark's light grew even brighter, and its song changed to something that sounded like pure joy. Jake stood still, afraid to move or speak. He did not understand what was happening, but he knew it was important. Around the room, other Zephyrians had begun to gather. Servants, advisors, and guards all came to see the small glowing creature. All of them were crying. Queen Vexara looked up at Jake. Her compound eyes, which had been full of anger before, now showed something completely different. They showed gratitude. "Human Jake Morrison," she said in English, her voice thick with emotion. "Do you know what you have brought to my world?" Jake shook his head. "No, Your Majesty. We call the creature Spark. We found it on a destroyed research station 6 months ago. Our doctor has been caring for it." The queen's 4 arms moved in a pattern that Jake's translator said meant deep respect. "This is no ordinary creature. This is a Lumhari, a memory keeper, a living library of the stars." She held Spark up so all in the room could see. "The Lumhari are ancient beings, older than our civilization. They store the knowledge and experiences of entire worlds in their bodies. When they sing, they share memories that go back millions of years." Jake's mouth fell open. "Millions of years?" "Yes," the queen said softly. "They are sacred to many species across the galaxy. The Zephyrians have protected and honored the Lumhari for 10,000 years. We thought they were extinct." Spark's song changed again. This time, Jake could almost understand it. Images flashed in his mind: ancient cities, strange alien faces, star systems being born and dying. The creature was sharing its memories, showing them glimpses of the deep past. "But if this Lumhari is so important," Jake said slowly, "why was it on that research station? And why was the station destroyed?" Queen Vexara's face darkened. Her skin shifted from gold back to purple and silver. "That is the reason for our war, human. That is why I was ready to order your death." She gestured to her guards, and they stepped back to give her space. The queen began to pace in front of her throne, still holding Spark gently in her palm. "The research station you found was ours," she said. "It was a place where our scientists worked with 3 young Lumhari to learn about ancient history. The work was peaceful, The Lumhari were happy there. Jake felt his heart sink. What happened to the other two? Dead, the Queen said, and her voice was full of pain. Murdered by extremists from our own people. Zephyrians who believed that any cooperation with humans was wrong. They attacked the station and killed everyone. Our scientists, your researchers who were working with us, and 2 innocent Lumhari. The Queen stopped pacing and looked directly at Jake. We thought humans had destroyed the station. We thought your people had killed the sacred ones out of ignorance or cruelty. For 6 months, we have prepared for holy war against your species. Jake understood now. The border conflicts, the growing anger, the threats of total war, it was all based on a terrible misunderstanding. Your Majesty, Jake said carefully, we did not know. Our people found the station already destroyed. We saved Spark because it was injured and alone. We have been caring for it because that seemed like the right thing to do. Queen Vexara studied Jake's face for a long moment. Around them, the Crystal Palace continued to sing along with Spark's gentle music. You saved a Lumhari without knowing what it was, she said finally. You cared for it without expecting reward. You brought it here, into danger, because you thought it might help make peace. Jake nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. The Queen looked down at Spark, who was still glowing softly in her palm. Tell me, human, how has your crew treated this little one? Jake thought about the past 6 months. Dr. Grant has been like a mother to Spark. She feeds it, plays music for it, talks to it every day. The whole crew loves the little guy. Some of the younger officers read it bedtime stories. For the first time since Jake had entered the throne room, Queen Vexara smiled. It was a strange sight. Her alien features were not made for human expressions, but the warmth was unmistakable. Bedtime stories, she repeated. The Lumhari do love stories. They collect them like treasures. Spark's song grew louder as if agreeing. The crystal walls responded with brighter colors. Queen Vexara turned to address her guards and advisors. She spoke rapidly in the Zephyrian language. Jake caught fragments, through his translator, words about peace, about misunderstandings, about sacred duties. Finally, she turned back to Jake. Captain Morrison, I owe you a great debt. You and your people have cared for one of the galaxy's most precious beings. You have shown kindness without understanding, compassion without reward. She paused, then continued, but there is something else. Something that changes everything. Jake waited, hardly daring to breathe. 3 years ago, you saved the life of a young Zephyrian warrior on the moon of Kepler-7. That warrior was my youngest brother, Crixtal. He has told me many times about the human who chose mercy over victory. Jake's eyes widened. He remembered the wounded soldier, the broken armor, the grateful touch of alien fingers on his hand. Now you have saved a Lumhari, the Queen continued. Twice you have chosen to protect rather than destroy. This cannot be coincidence, this must be destiny. She raised Spark up toward the crystal ceiling. The little creature's light filled the entire throne room, making everything glow like the inside of a star. The war ends now, Queen Vexara declared, her voice carrying to every corner of the palace. There will be no more fighting between humans and Zephyrians. Instead, there will be alliance. There will be friendship. There will be peace, the Zephyrians. In the room began to make a sound Jake had never heard before. It was like singing and cheering mixed together. The palace itself seemed to celebrate, its crystal walls ringing like bells. Jake felt tears on his face. He had come here expecting to die, and instead he had witnessed the birth of peace between 2 civilizations. Spark floated back to Jake, glowing brighter than ever. The little creature settled on his shoulder like a tiny sun. Its song had become soft and content, like a cat purring. Thank you, Jake whispered to the small being. Thank you for helping me understand. Queen Vexara approached and placed one of her large hands on Jake's shoulder. No, Captain Morrison, thank you. You have taught my people something important today. You have shown us that kindness can exist even between strangers, even between enemies. As the celebration continued around them, Jake realized that the most important diplomatic tool was not treaties or weapons or clever words. Sometimes the path to peace was as simple as caring for something small and helpless, and trusting that goodness would find a way to grow. Queen Vexara's private chambers were nothing like the grand throne room. Here the crystal walls were softer, glowing with warm light that reminded Jake of a sunset on Earth. The Queen had dismissed all her guards and advisors, leaving only herself, Jake, and Spark in the quiet space. The Queen had changed too. Gone was the formal armor and royal jewelry. She now wore simple robes that moved like liquid metal. Without all the ceremony, she seemed more like a person and less like a distant ruler. Jake sat on a chair made of smooth crystal that somehow felt comfortable despite being made of stone. Spark floated nearby, content to explore the room's many interesting objects. The little Lumhari seemed fascinated by a collection of memory crystals that lined one wall. "Captain Morrison," the Queen said, settling onto a large cushion across from Jake. "Before we talk about the future, you must understand the past. You must know the full truth about what happened at that research station." Jake nodded. "I am listening, Your Majesty." "Please call me Vexara. We are beyond formal titles now." She gestured to a servant who brought them both cups of a warm drink that tasted like honey and starlight. "What I am about to tell you is known only to my closest advisors. It is a shameful part of our recent history." Vexara stood and walked to a window that looked out over the Crystal City. For generations, the Zephyrian Empire ruled through strength and conquest. We believed that our way was the only right way. We saw other species as either subjects to be ruled or enemies to be destroyed. Jake sipped his drink and waited for her to continue. But 20 years ago, everything changed. We made first contact with the Lumhari. These ancient beings showed us memories of civilizations that had risen and fallen across the galaxy. They shared wisdom from species we had never imagined. Spark floated closer to the Queen, its soft glow reflecting off her metallic skin. "The Lumhari taught us that strength without compassion leads only to destruction. They showed us the ruins of empires that conquered everything and then collapsed from within. They helped us understand that true greatness comes from building up, rather than tearing down." Vexara turned back to face Jake. "Many of my people embraced these new ideas, but others did not. A group of extremists led by my own uncle, General Zekmor, believed the Lumhari were making us weak. They saw cooperation with other species as betrayal of Zephyrian pride." Jake set down his cup. "Your uncle led the attack on the research station?" "Yes." Vexara's voice was heavy with sadness. "The station was a secret project known only to a few. We were working with human scientists to learn about ancient history. It was our first real attempt at cooperation between our species." She walked over to a wall covered with pictures. Jake could see images of Zephyrians and humans working together, alien and human children playing side by side, and in the center, 3 small glowing creatures that looked like Spark. "The project was beautiful," Vexara continued. "Your people brought knowledge of exploration and adaptability. My people contributed our understanding of crystal technology and energy manipulation. Together, we were learning things neither species could have discovered alone." Jake studied the pictures. "What were you learning?" The Lumhari were sharing memories of the first civilizations to achieve peace between different species. They were teaching us how to build societies where many different kinds of life could thrive together. Vexara pointed to one picture that showed a Lumhari floating between a group of humans and Zephyrians. "We were creating something new, something hopeful. But your uncle stopped it." "Yes." Zekmor convinced his followers that the humans were corrupting our culture. He said the Lumhari were weapons that would make us forget our warrior heritage. He believed that by working with humans, we were betraying everything it meant to be Zephyrian. Vexara sat down again, her forearms folded, in her lap. "The attack came without warning. Zekmor's ships destroyed the research station and everyone on it. 17 human scientists, 12 Zephyrian researchers, and 2 young Lumhari died that day." Jake felt sick thinking about it. "Only Spark survived." "Only Spark," Vexara agreed. hidden in the wreckage, badly hurt, alone and afraid. Spark drifted over to Vexara and settled gently on her arm. The queen stroked the small creature with one finger, the same way a human might pet a kitten. After the attack, Zekmor's ships made it look like human vessels had done the destruction. He showed my council false evidence that your people had murdered the Lumhari out of fear and jealousy. Jake shook his head. And you believed him? We had no reason to doubt. Zekmor was family, and the evidence seemed real. For 6 months, we prepared for war. We built new ships, trained new soldiers, and planned the total destruction of human space. Vexara looked directly into Jake's eyes. If you had come here without Spark, if you had offered the usual treaties and trade agreements, I would have killed you myself. The anger in my heart was that strong. Jake understood now why the guards had been ready to attack, why the Queen's first words had been about justifying humanity's existence. What changed your mind? You, Vexara said simply. You brought me proof that humans are capable of great kindness. You showed me a Lomhari that was healthy and happy and clearly loved. That could not have happened if your people were the monsters Zekmor claimed them to be. She stood and walked to another wall, this one covered with star charts. More than that, you brought me hope. For 6 months I have mourned the death of the Lomhari. I thought the last memory keepers were gone forever. But here is Spark, alive and singing, carrying within itself the wisdom of ages. Jake watched, Spark exploring the room. The little creature seemed to enjoy discovering new things. Right now it was fascinated by a crystal sculpture that changed colors when touched. Vexara, Jake said carefully. What happened to your uncle? To General Zekmor? The Queen's expression hardened. When Spark began to sing in my throne room, the truth became clear. Lumhari cannot lie, Captain Morrison. They sing truth itself. Through Spark's song, I saw memories of the attack, felt the fear and pain of the dying Lumhari, witnessed my uncle's betrayal. She touched a control on the wall, and one of the star charts zoomed in on a distant solar system. Zekmor and his followers have fled to the outer rim. They have declared themselves enemies of the crown and vowed to continue fighting both humans and any Zephyrians who support peace. Jake frowned. So the danger is not over. No, but it is smaller now and we will face it together. Vexara turned back to Jake with determination in her compound eyes. My brother Krixtal is already gathering loyal forces to deal with the extremists. With human help, we can end their threat once and for all. You want humans to help fight other Zephyrians? I want friends to help friends, Vexara corrected. The division in my people was caused by fear and misunderstanding. The cure for fear is knowledge. The cure for misunderstanding is truth. Spark floated back over to them, glowing contentedly. The little creature settled between Jake and Vexara, as if it wanted to be close to both of them. There is something else you must know, Vexara said. The research station was not the only cooperative project between our peoples. There are others, hidden across the galaxy. Secret bases where humans and Zephyrians have been working together for years. Jake's eyes widened. How many others? 7 installations with over 300 researchers from both species. They have been waiting in hiding, afraid to reveal themselves while our governments were at war. Vexara smiled, and Jake realized he was getting used to the Queen's alien expressions. Tomorrow we will contact them all. We will tell them that the war is over and the real work can begin. What kind of work? Building the future, Captain Morrison. Creating the galaxy that the Lumhari showed us in their memories. A place where different species work together instead of fighting. A place where strength comes from cooperation, not conquest. Jake looked at Spark, remembering how the crew of the Liberty had cared for the little creature without knowing its importance. And you think humans and Zephyrians can really do this together? Vexara reached over and gently touched Jake's hand with one of her own. Her skin felt cool and smooth like polished stone. Captain Morrison, 6 months ago you found a small hurt creature on a destroyed station. You did not know what it was or where it came from, but you fed it, cared for it, and protected it simply because it needed help. She gestured around the room with its warm lights and comfortable furniture. Today, that simple act of kindness prevented a war and saved millions of lives. If humans can do that, if your people can show such compassion for the unknown, then yes, I believe we can build something wonderful together. Spark began to sing again, a soft melody that seemed to agree with the Queen's words. The crystal walls of the chamber responded with gentle light that pulsed in harmony with the Lumhari's song. Jake sat back in his crystal chair and smiled. He had come to this world expecting to die. Instead, he had found something he had never expected, a future full of hope. 3 months later, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of New Harmony, the first joint human Zephyrian colony. Through the transparent crystal walls, he could see something that would have been impossible to imagine just a few months. Human children were playing with young Zephyrians in gardens that sparkled with living light. The children laughed and chased each other through crystal trees that sang in the wind. Some of the human kids had learned to make the clicking sounds that passed for laughter among Zephyrian youth. Jake smiled as he watched a small human girl, named Katie, teach a young Zephyrian how to throw a ball. The alien child's forearms made catching easy, but throwing in the right direction was harder. Both children were laughing at the silly games they invented together. "It is beautiful, is it not?" a familiar voice said behind Jake. Jake turned to see Crixtal approaching. Queen Vexara's younger brother was tall like all Zephyrians, but his armor was simpler than the royal guards. He wore the uniform of the New Alliance Defense Force, a military group that included both humans and Zephyrians working together. "It really is," Jake agreed. "Sometimes I have to remind myself this is real." Crixtal moved to stand beside Jake at the window. The Zephyrians' English had improved greatly over the past months. "I remember when you saved my life on Kepler 7. I thought you were crazy to help an enemy soldier." "You were not my enemy," Jake said. "You were just someone who needed help." "That is what my sister says too. She believes this is what makes humans special. You help first and ask questions later." Jake chuckled. "Sometimes that gets us in trouble, and sometimes it saves the galaxy," Crixtal replied. They watched the children play for a while longer. New Harmony was built using both human and Zephyrian technology. The result was unlike anything either species had created alone. Buildings grew from the ground like crystal flowers, powered by energy that came from the living rock itself. Streets curved and flowed like rivers of light. The city was home to 5,000 humans and 3,000 Zephyrians. More arrived every week as word spread about the successful colony. Scientists, artists, teachers, and families all came to be part of something new. "Jake," a voice called out. Jake turned to see Dr. Lisa Grant walking toward them. She carried a small bag and looked excited about something. Floating beside her was Spark, glowing happily as always. The little Lumhari had become famous throughout human and Zephyrian space, but it seemed most content when it was with people it knew. "Lisa, what is it?" Jake asked. "You need to see this," Lisa said, opening her bag. She pulled out a small crystal device that looked like a flower made of light. The Lumhari research team has made a breakthrough. Over the past months, human and Zephyrian scientists had been working with Spark to learn about the Lumhari species and their incredible memories. They had discovered that Spark could share not just images from the past, but actual knowledge and skills. "What kind of breakthrough?" Crixtal asked. Lisa activated the crystal device. Immediately, a holographic display appeared in the air above it. The display showed a star map of the local galaxy, but it was unlike any map Jake had ever seen. This one showed trade routes, communication networks, and the locations of dozens of different alien civilizations. "Spark has been sharing maps from its memory," Lisa explained excitedly. "Not just where different species live, but how they are connected. Look at this." She touched the device, and the map zoomed in on a section of space near human territory. Golden lines appeared, connecting star system after star system. "These are peaceful civilizations," Lisa continued. "Species that have been trying to build cooperative relationships for thousands of years. They have been waiting for someone to help them connect with each other." Jake studied the map. There were at least 30 different alien species shown, all within a few months' travel of human space. "Why have not we met them before?" Because they are not warriors, Crixtal said, understanding immediately. Species like the old Zephyrian Empire only noticed civilizations that could fight back. We ignored the peaceful ones. Exactly, Lisa said. But Spark remembers them all. It has been to their worlds, learned their languages, shared their stories. It can help us make contact. Spark floated closer to the holographic display. The little creature's glow grew brighter as it studied the star map. Then it began to sing, and the display changed. Now Jake could see images of the alien civilizations themselves. There were beings made of living crystal, creatures that looked like floating jellyfish, and others that seemed to be made of pure energy. All of them looked peaceful, intelligent, and curious about the universe around them. How many are there? Jake asked in wonder. Hundreds, Lisa said. Maybe thousands, all waiting for the chance to share knowledge, art, and friendship with other species. A new voice joined the conversation. It is the galaxy that the Lumhari have been trying to help us build for millions of years. Jake turned to see Queen Vexara approaching. The Queen now spent half her time on New Harmony, working with human leaders to plan the expansion of their alliance. She had changed greatly since their first meeting. Her formal royal manner had been replaced by something warmer and more personal. Your Majesty, Jake said, giving a small bow. Even though they were friends now, he still respected her position. Vexara, she corrected with a smile. We have talked about this, Jake. Old habits, Jake said with a grin. Vexara studied the holographic display with great interest. Her compound eyes reflected the golden lines that connected the different civilizations. Lisa is right, the Queen said. This is what the Lumhari have been working toward for eons. A galaxy where knowledge is shared instead of hoarded, where differences are celebrated instead of feared. But it will not be easy, Crixtal warned. My uncle Zekmor and his extremists are still out there. They have made contact with other species that prefer conquest to cooperation. They will try to stop us. Vexara nodded seriously. This is true. Building peace is harder than making war. It requires patience, understanding, and constant effort. Jake looked back at the children playing in the crystal gardens below. Human and Zephyrian youngsters were now working together to build something out of glowing blocks. Whatever they were making, they were having fun doing it together. But look what we have already accomplished, Jake said. 3 months ago, our species were ready to destroy each other. Now we have built a city together, made discoveries together, and become friends. Spark floated over to Jake and settled on his shoulder, like it had done so many times before. The little Lumhari's song was soft and content. Through their months together, Jake had learned to understand some of what Spark's different songs meant. This one meant happiness and hope. There is something else, Vexara said. Yesterday, we received our first contact request from another species. The Velnari, a peaceful race from the Andromeda sector, want to meet with the human Zephyrian alliance. Lisa's eyes grew wide. Really? What do they want? To learn, Vexara said simply. They have heard about New Harmony and want to see how 2 different species can live and work together. They think they might want to join our alliance. Jake felt a familiar excitement building in his chest. It was the same feeling he had gotten when he first decided to help the wounded Zephyrian soldier. The same feeling that had made him bring Spark to meet the Queen. So it begins, he said softly. What begins? Crixtal asked. Jake gestured to the holographic star map, with its golden lines connecting dozens of worlds. The galaxy that Spark has been dreaming of. The future that the Lumhari have been trying to create for millions of years. Vexara placed one of her large hands on Jake's other shoulder. And it begins with a human who chose to show kindness to a small, hurt creature he found on a broken space station. No, Jake said, looking at his friends, human and alien, young and old, all gathered around a map of infinite possibilities. It begins with all of us choosing to believe that different kinds of people can work together to build something better than any of us could build alone. Spark's song grew louder, and the crystal walls of New Harmony began to resonate with the sound. Throughout the city, other Lumhari, the few that scientists had found on distant worlds, added their voices to the song. The music was beautiful and hopeful, full of memories of past civilizations that had chosen cooperation over conquest. Jake looked up at the stars visible through the crystal dome above them. Each point of light was a sun, possibly with planets, possibly with life, possibly with people who were dreaming of a better future just like them. For the first time since leaving Earth, Jake truly believed that the future was going to be brighter than the past. 6 months ago, he had been a simple ship captain trying to prevent a war. Now he was an ambassador helping to build a new kind of galaxy, one where different species would work together, learn from each other, and face the challenges of the universe as friends rather than enemies. All because he had chosen to be kind to something small and helpless that needed his help. Jake smiled and listened to Spark's song of hope echoing through the crystal city of New Harmony, carrying dreams of peace to the stars beyond.